This is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top questions and struggles, and I share what to eat, how to move, and how to think to get the energy and the vitality you want in this second and better half. And today, as a part of the Summer Inspire series, I am my own guest. So, here's what I'm doing, and this is a complete reveal, teasing really a project that's going to be ongoing. And as I record this, we're posting July 11th, 2017, and this little experiment is going to go on through November, the weekend right after Thanksgiving in the United States, depending on where you're listening from in the world. So here's what's happening. I'm literally throwing myself under the bus. I'm throwing myself into this Summer Inspire series, which may be ironic for some of you. This may be not inspiring whatsoever. But here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've had some internal conflict, a little incongruency with what I want, what I believe, what I love, what I'm studying, what I've personally proven and tested to be true, and really what I'm drawn to. So many of you know, if you're here, you're a female in midlife, whether you're approaching 50, and if you're on the other side of 50, meaning not there yet, you are approaching 50, let's just call that what it is, or you've already turned the corner on 50, and the truth is, yes, there's major hormone change for most of us that happen, as we approach 50 and that decade between 50 and 60. However, we are going to be affected by those hormonal changes for the rest of our life. So flipping 50 clearly is on a mission to talk to all women who are between 50 and 99. So that's a whole nother story, and I may tackle that in a couple decades. But my interest lies here because it's the most volatile time. It's the biggest shift that we've ever had in our lives. Even first having that period, right? That was a big change, going from little girl to woman, at least having a body that could do that, even if you, maturity-wise, weren't quite there. That was a big change. However, once you settle in, the biggest change and the way your body is affected so much more is on the exit, going through perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. For some of us, it's just, happens. It's a transition. For others, it's a bigger deal. My goal is to make it the smoothest ride possible for you by suggesting to you the lifestyle things through nutrition, through exercise, and literally the way you plan your day, from getting up in the morning, what you first do, to going to bed at night, and what you do before that to make that good night's sleep really work for you easier, more natural. Now, some of us are going to need more than that. So also supplying you with the experts who guest on Flipping 50 and who share with us what are the tests that you should be looking at potentially if you're not able to make the ride as smooth as you'd like to just with what you're doing naturally. What do you ask for? What do you need to know about interpreting the results from those tests, about then taking as much control as possible? I'm a big fan of that, and you could say a control freak. I think I've relaxed a little bit, but definitely I want to do as much as I possibly can, and I'm a big believer that we can't just reach for the medical fix if we're not already doing everything that we need to do to help it. The question sometimes is we don't know exactly what that is. So there are two reasons that women will tell me why they're, say, not exercising or not eating correctly. It's because of time in terms of exercise. Maybe they'll give me time in terms of nutrition. Maybe you would too. But the bigger reason is that it's lack of clarity about really what to do right now. It's confusing because it feels like the rules have changed. What used to work for you doesn't work. And nutrition is given in nutritional advice is given in so great of dose all over on the internet, where we're all going and seeking and typing into Google for answers. What we're getting from registered dietitians, our doctors, our besties, is all different. And the answer to all of those, what you should do for exercise, what you should do for nutrition, there are some generalities. I think we can all agree. If I told you to, drink wine every day, and that would be great. Depending on you and how much wine, that's probably not great advice. If I said, go ahead and have sugar, it's no big deal. That's probably not great advice anymore. We know that it's much more damaging. We really can't give our kids, without having some consciousness about what sugar does, we can't probably have them enjoy the Easter treats, the 4th of July parade candy, and the Halloween candy without really looking closely at, what's happening to them and how are we going to prevent them from being in the same place we're at. We know so much more about it. So my purpose here is really to dive into me. I'm going to throw myself under the bus, so to speak, and really pull back the curtain. Not just saying that, but literally doing it. So I'm blind going in. I'm not pulling back the curtain to reveal what I want to reveal. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's a real reveal. So here's where I'm at. I've been someone who forever would prefer to go long and slow in terms of running, bicycling, spending time at the gym doing cardio. I love that, and I love it most because it releases for me some creativity, reduces stress to some point, mentally anyway. So I now have to qualify that because I know what happens physically. But for me, it actually has always been a way to write more. So whether it's, blogging, or before blogging when I was writing articles or creating content for books, writing for other people, for newsletters, for newspapers, exercising for a period of time was a way to move my body physically and let my brain kind of just roam. And it's when I solve problems. And a lot of you probably will identify with that. We look forward to, and I think we crave, not necessarily the hour of exercise, but we crave the time in our life when it provided relaxation, when it provided that freedom that we weren't constantly on a to-do list and here's an appointment, I got to be on this schedule, and then that, and then, and we're so much more structured now in our lives. And I would say that to you, probably true, even if you're retired and you've got a little bit less to do and nobody telling you to be at work and be here. We still live so much more by the clock than, say, we did 10 years ago or 20 for sure. So that's what it gave me, and I think that's what we crave. I still crave it. And admittedly, I don't have that kind of time anymore, and probably why I crave it more. So I do know, after having 3 years under my belt, literally tightening that belt, of 20 minutes or 30 minutes of cardio or of strength training, sometimes down to 10, doing little 5-minute, 10-minute pieces of yoga instead of having the entire 45 minutes or hour to go to a class or even do it in my living room, has helped me stay the same weight, remain about the same body composition, meaning same percent body fat. So I'm not losing muscle, I'm not gaining fat, I'm staying the same. And when I say that, that's a plus. For me, it was where it needed to be. I'm at my biggest comfort level. Now, compared to some of you, I actually can't get down too low in terms of body fat and live. I'm not going to stay in that stuck part where I have to watch every little, morsel I put in and focus and calculate and to get down to a certain point. Because here's the science. You all need to acknowledge this, okay? if you're working really hard to lose weight and you want to push and do a little extra exercise or do a little less calories or watch a little bit more of this or that, you got to realize you have to dial that up. Once you get to the point where you want to be, you have to do more exercise. You have to eat less. You have to do far more to maintain than you did to lose it, because of what happens when you lose weight. Even though gaining lean muscle mass can help boost metabolism and offset, some of this, you're going to have slowing of metabolism. If you weigh 200 pounds versus you weigh 150 pounds, that person with 200 pounds carrying that around bumps up metabolism and the need for calories and energy expenditure. Now, we're not going to get too much into that. So I want to come back full circle to me, all right? It's all about me today. But here's what I'm doing. So I know I'm at this point where not only am I, 53, and so you suspect changes are going on hormonally. Literally, I know that in the last 3 to 4 months, I've had a huge shift. And I know that primarily from my signs and symptoms being, I've always been a great sleeper. Sleep solves every problem for me. So highly stressed, having a little, negative allergy day, not really coming up with great ideas or programs. Sleep. I just need a good night's sleep. I get up in the morning, I'm charging, ready to go. I love morning. And I'm a solid sleeper. My significant other described me as a coffin sleeper, comparing the way he sleeps versus I sleep. Coffin sleeper meaning, like I said, what does that mean? He said, you don't move. You're dead. I said, well, I'm sleeping. I'm busy doing things, repairing myself, and, locking in memory. So true. When I'm at my best, but for the last 3.5 months, I've been waking frequently. I have been, I think, experiencing minor little, hot flashes, no night sweats, but although it's been probably 95 inside my house, we're having a really hot summer. That hasn't helped. But even so, sneaking down to the spare bedroom where it's really cool has not helped me at all. So I know that's a huge sign for me that, I've got some change going on. Probably in regards to melatonin, my cortisol levels, all those are changing. So literally, I have tested very recently, not only for that reason, to confirm it, to look at my options, but because I am about to engage on this long-term training for an endurance event. My passion is, doing not necessarily triathlon, but definitely cross training. So triathlon fits the bill. I don't love to do one thing all the time. I did, and it used to be running. But I know that for me to be running again or still in 30 years or 40 years, I need to be cross training and not running every day. So swimming and biking and running have become more of a mojo. That's what I do cross training wise the majority of the time. Now indoors in the wintertime, I'm also boxing. Love that for upper arms, love it for core, love it for low impact on my body. So my joints get a little relief. My heart still gets the workout it needs, as does my head. So that's who I am. I love long endurance training. And there is what I call the joy factor. And that is, we can't necessarily impose a logical goal on ourselves and get excited about it. It just doesn't happen. So it might be that, if I were to say, my workout is going to be, 2 interval training sessions a week, 1 on the bike and 1 on a run. And then I'm going to do a little bit more moderate swim and do a little longer run or walk, hike / during the week. And that's going to kind of compose. And there we go. That's my goal for the week. I am not excited about that. There's no payout. Sure, I enjoy exercise, but what I really like is a goal, a long-term goal. And for me, getting to a starting line is that. the experience. And if you haven't experienced the triathlon community, you won't understand this, but I don't think you need to. You probably experienced it some other way in your life. Maybe it's a group that you enjoy dancing with, or cardio dancing with, or that you actually are taking ballroom lessons, and that fix that you get from that. Maybe for you it's yoga, or it's stand-up paddleboarding, or it's bicycling, or on and on. You can choose your own mode of exercise, but you've probably got that. For me, it's triathlon, and I have one more in me. Last year, many of you who've been here for any period of time know this. We had a tragedy in our family, and we lost a young dad, father of three, who at that point were 3, 6, and 9, and married to the love of his life, who is my niece. He was killed tragically while riding his bicycle, one of his life passions, with a friend, by a drunk driver. And I'm not going to go into the details, but that weekend of his death, I had been training and was at the point where I was about to register for a triathlon about 5 weeks away, almost a little less, in fact. And that just took the wind out of my sails. There was nothing left, and it wasn't going to happen. And I have no regrets about not doing that. It was the right thing to do. We had too much stress. We had too many things on our plate, our minds, our hearts, and it is what it is. So I let that go, thinking, I had one more in me. I really wanted to do it, and was, kind of coming out from under being buried in starting over, starting a business. At 49, I jumped in, I leaped, I took huge risk, and I was just realizing I've got to come back to some more balance. For short term, you can do a lot of things, and focusing on it felt good, but I was beginning to get weary, and I needed that me time, something just for me back in my schedule. And this is it for me, a chance to be outdoors, be active, interact with other people, also goal-oriented. That's what I want. So I'm doing it this year. I am going to be registering for the Ironman in Cozumel. So for those of you who don't know, an Ironman is a crazy distance. It is a 2.4 mile swim. In this case, it'll be in the ocean. I've done this once before. It's clear. You can see the bottom. The water's warm. You can get seasick while swimming. I did not. And then you follow that with a 112-mile bike ride around the little island of Cozumel. Beautiful. And you follow that with a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. Whether you run it, you walk it, or you crawl it, has happened before, you get 17 hours to complete that event and be determined or called legal. If you take longer than that, you could still finish potentially, but you would be what they call DNF, or did not finish officially. You wouldn't be recognized. Now, personally, I've had that happen. I had an injury where I decided I was walking as opposed to doing any permanent damage or risking that instead of running the marathon. And so I finished a little bit late, not knowing exactly where my time clock was. But for me personally, it was finishing what I set out to do that really mattered. So whether or not I was completely acknowledged by the Ironman committee or not did not matter to me. I'm at the same spot. That's what I want. I want the chance to be out there, engaging with nature, taking a little mini vacation during my training. But I want to watch and be thoughtful about what it's doing. We do know this, with long endurance activities, we can accelerate aging. And I'm talking about your mitochondria at the cellular level, the damage you do to telomeres, which determine in part how well you will get through this longevity thing. So staying young as long as you have birthday candles still accumulating, that ultimately is the goal. So I am also testing. I've tested all my sex hormones. Those are familiar to most of you as estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. The other things that are related are DHES, pregnenolone. I have a hard time pronouncing that, so just a disclaimer there. Um, those are the big ones, and looking at, mine, the words that came to me from my practitioner as we were, talking initially about meeting and doing the consult, she commented on my hormones and basically said, "You have none." So, I'm tanking. Some of that, most likely, nothing that I could do something about preventing from happening. So, your estrogen does what it's going to do, and it's channeling in the ways that it wants to channel based on genetics and what's happening. There are some things that you can do. You can choose and examine whether you want to do bioidentical hormones or not, and you can try and go more naturally with maybe herbs, alternatives. Definitely there is a piece of, the nutrition and the exercise that you choose to help supplement your progress. And of course, I'll pay attention to that, but I'm going to color outside the lines. The joy factor that comes into play with cortisol. Cortisol happens from stress in your body, stress in your mind, stress in your emotional health. So we're talking whether you're stressed over your finances or you're stressed because you went for too long of a workout. Your body wasn't ready for it, hadn't trained for it, and maybe it's simply too much based on overload of all those parts. What we know is with exercise, if we overdo it, we're going to increase that cortisol. So I've got to watch that. I'm going to watch that very closely. And yet, the joy factor is the counter to that. So adding things that you look forward to and you love into your life is one way to offset stress. Stress isn't going to go away, not for any of us. I'm definitely choosing to put more in my life right now with this endurance event. But adding joy at the same time, because this is something I love. Will it or won't it have a different effect? It's one of the questions that I'm asking about what to do. I'm also going to be really wise in my planning, my training. I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach as well as a medical exercise specialist, which means kind of over and above personal training. It actually is, working with people with special conditions that we used to take them aside, and that was really special if you were, prenatal or had osteoporosis or were going to have a joint replacement. Well, anymore, most adults walking through the door have up to 3 special conditions, including, cholesterol, high blood pressure, special things going on. As a medical exercise specialist, I'm an expert in helping people with that. So it certainly doesn't hurt what I'm doing for myself. There, at this point, still isn't, hormones coming under that roof. The only place we're really looking at hormones in terms of medical exercise or clinical exercise specialists is in pre and post natal. And so it's coming. It's not quite there. I'm probably ahead of the curve because I'm really addressing it for women in midlife specifically and what that looks like. And you don't often get great advice from your doctor because they often too may be falling back on either a really too conservative approach or, and that's probably the bigger one. A doc isn't necessarily going to be extremely aggressive simply because it's not right for everybody, even if they themselves are doing it. So here's what I, want to share with you. I'm going to share with you what happens with, my energy level, my feeling about the exercise, how I'm doing, and how I'm structuring it. So rather than take the typical high volume, lots of miles, lots of time, lots of minutes, what I'm going to do is try and structure a workout for myself or a workout routine over the weeks and the months that reduces the total volume and increases the intensity. So I'm planning to do a little bit more high intensity interval training. continue to do some more weight training to hold on to lean muscle mass, to develop that power without slogging away all the miles and the endurance. So working smarter, not harder. Now, some athletes are shifting toward that, but certainly older athletes need to do this. So that's kind of my key. And I've had a couple of long, huge volume types of Ironman training sets before. This will be the 6th Ironman I'm training for. So I've got kind of the beginner where I began doing just the basics, the minimal, if you will, because during a really busy place in my career, I was still able to do it. But the last 2, the volume was increasingly high. What I'm going to do is significantly cut that back and show you how I include a better sequence and less volume in order to get ultimately better fitness results and better hormonal results. So I'm testing now. I've already got the results. I'm going to share that in the blog this coming week on Thursday, and that'll be July 13th, 2017, for those of you that want to peek in on that. So I'll do the real reveal on where I am, what exactly was tanking and what wasn't. Let's just say across the board already, most was tanking. And, and then I'll talk to you about what I'm doing about it. So I can share the supplements I'm taking, what's on the way as far as hormone supplements, and how I respond and react. So all of that will come through, and I'll be updating you, not on a regular weekly basis necessarily on the blog, but try bi-weekly at least to update you and give you a little hint on how I'm doing and on this journey. So I welcome your questions and your comments, because I know a lot of you listening out there actually love exercise as well, and I'm having to hold you back, and I totally can identify with you loving those long hour runs, but potentially if it's not working, you've got to fix it. What I'm looking for is to find out, okay, right now I'm not broken, I'm doing great, but most of the time I've been doing shorter workouts for the last 3 years, 20 to 30 minutes of cardio intervals most days, maybe one long, slow hike, run, and a couple times a week getting in the pool. I'm being much more religious about that now, and then doing some cycling, but they've been closer to 45-minute to hour-and-a-half sessions, not extremely long ones like you'll need to for an Ironman. Riding 112 miles can take up to 7 hours on a bad day. So if you've got wind, heat, humidity, as you will in Cozumel, and you're training in dry, cold, as I will be by the time we get to that time of year, it'll be a major shift. So I'll have to be prepared for that. So that's what's coming. So I welcome your questions and hope you'll come along for the journey. I'll talk a little bit about where I've done my hormone testing. If you're interested in hormone testing, you don't have access to functional medicine peeps who really know what they're doing, ask the right questions. I'll share with you here in Boulder who I'm working with and the amazing, line by line detailed interpretation of my results that I got. And for any of you who are listening and interested, we are planning the first annual Flipping 50 retreat to happen over Labor Day weekend. So if you are thinking about, getting a little more one-on-one, you want a little bit more hands-on and immerse yourself into a weekend just for you, Thursday through Sunday of Labor Day weekend, and you can still be back home and have a day to prepare for your entry into fall unofficially. So I'll be posting more about that as well. But you could respond right here to the podcast or to the blog on Thursday if you're interested. So if you have a question, leave it below the show link at flipping50.com. I love hearing from you. Really interested in hearing about your thoughts on this. And if this episode is helpful, I'd love it if you'd leave a rating in iTunes and share it with a friend, especially if you have those crazy friends who love that long endurance activity. You're exercising like crazy, but you're not getting results. This will be a lot of information that will be very useful. Surround yourself with a supportive community of women who are on the same journey by hanging out here at flipping50.com. And to get the most out of this week's episode, check out today's show notes at flipping50.com/podcast, where I'll share the link to the blog coming up on Thursday. And you'll find all the juicy download and resources from each show posted in those show notes. Let's start flipping 50 together.